Hi everyone, I'm Priya from It's OKR and welcome back to our Immigrant Career Corner series. The topic for today is everything you must know to crack a phone screening interview in the US. Back with Shreya Mehta today, who is a recruiter at Uber and has previously worked with Amazon. I'll share everything about her in the description box. She had previously come and shared with her how to make your resume ATS friendly so that your resume actually gets picked. And now if your resume is picked, then it's a great time for you to start prepping for your phone screening interview and really understanding what that questions look like and how you should be answering them. What you can expect from this video is what is a phone screening, how you should be answering them, what is a recruiter looking for in a phone screening process, what are some of the top questions that they ask and how to answer them, and then what are some of the good questions to ask to a recruiter. So hopefully you will enjoy and learn a lot from this insightful conversation, and if you like it, leave a comment in the comment box and also let us know if you want us to provide you templates for any of these answers. So without wasting any more time, Shreya, welcome back and let's get straight into the question, which is who conducts these phone screening interviews and what is the purpose of these phone screening interviews?
Of course. So thank you so much, of course, for having me again. And I would say the phone screens are actually conducted by the recruiting team. So all of us know that we have recruiters and then we have the hiring team that you're actually interviewing for. So all the phone screens are done by the recruiters. Again, every company has different ideas of what recruiting team looks like. So some of them have sourcers who actually would source you, find you from LinkedIn, or reach out to you when you actually apply for the role and then conduct that phone screen. Or there are some companies who would just have one person, which would be called as recruiters, and throughout from the phone screen until the negotiation and the offer letter is signed, they would be one person. So it's done through the recruiting team, and some recruiting teams are divided between sourcing and recruiting.
What would you say are they trying to understand about a candidate during a phone screening?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And, all of us definitely want to know that. Like, I have been wanting to know that since I've been on the other side of the table as well. So I would say there are three basic things that the recruiter or the team would be looking at when they're speaking with a candidate. First would definitely be the hard skills. So the skills that the candidate needs to be on the team. So it can be the technical languages like SQL, R, Python, or it can be other things like knowledge of the product or strategic operations or anything. So all the hard skills. Second would definitely be business acumen, just an understanding of like, do they even understand the business or the team or the industry that they're applying for, right? So they would have questions around that. And even if the recruiting team doesn't have questions around it, they would definitely want to observe if the candidate is bringing in those knowledge, those terminologies when they're answering it. Third would be soft skills, so for communication, body language, presentation. How do they structure their answers? Are they just blabbering it out of nervousness, or they actually haven't structure and they're like poised when they're answering? So I would say three things: hard skills, soft skills, and then I would say business acumen.
And when you say body language on a phone screening, are you thinking about like the tone and everything that the way they are communicating it? Like what would that be?
Yeah, definitely. Tone. I would say there are a lot of candidates I hear on a phone screen when they're like tapping something continuously, or they're like,
Ah.
walking around, and I can hear that. And if they're walking around, or like, if they're like trying to stretch and they would move away from the mic or the Bluetooth speakers, we
Mm.
actually observe that. At least I actually observe that a lot. And then as calm as you would be, as you would sit down, talk about it like as if it's a video call. That would be extremely important because in your tone, in your gestures, they can actually hear if you are racing through the room, if you're looking out of the window, if you're trying to like lock the door out of nervousness. And all of this is out
Ah.
of nervousness. So I would include all of that in the body language.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I know you mentioned like three clear things that they are trying to gauge. I would love to understand and unpack some of the questions that you ask during these phone screenings. So, do you have any top phone screening questions that you absolutely ask a candidate?
Yes. Oh, yes. We have so many. Like there are some times when we like, actually start with the role and we know that these questions we definitely get to ask. And I'm pretty sure anybody who would be listening, they would be nodding along with us, Priya. First would definitely be tell me about yourself. That's not a question as much as we like just trying to understand the person, their idea, their structure. And honestly, that gives us time in the background to just identify that how they're actually talking about their work experience. So that definitely will be one answer. And for me, sometimes those 30 minutes to 2 minutes, 30 seconds to 2 minutes would actually be such an impression maker, because I would think that if a person cannot talk about themselves really well, then I'm not sure if they would be okay talking about the industry and the projects that they have done. So that second would definitely be, why are you applying for this role, or why are you even looking for, like, a new role? So that definitely needs strong answer. Third would be around what exactly the projects that they have done. So they would say, share an example of, let's say we're talking about product marketing manager, share an example of a launch that you've done in the past, or you've been a part of the launch that the company has conducted. So they would definitely ask specific questions related to the work. Fourth, I would put, and again, not very talked about, is what is your range of the salary, right? When they ask that question, they definitely want to know where do you stand in the industry. And if a candidate doesn't know that, I think it's going to be something, again, a deal breaker. I won't say a red flag, but a deal breaker probably.
No, this is super helpful, and I think it will be a huge miss if I don't ask you what is the best way to answer these questions, because I'm sure for everyone who's listening really wants to know what is it that the recruiter is looking for in these questions. Because, for example, tell me about yourself can be as exhaustive as I want
Mhm.
it to be, or it can be very crisp. So let's
Yeah.
like start unpacking what are the couple of things that you're looking for in these questions. So with the first one being, you mentioned, tell me about yourself. What do you
Yes.
think is the best way to answer that?
I think that's a great question, Priya. And like you said, yes, absolutely. Everybody must be looking for an answer for that. So I would say, if you are trying to tell them about yourself, so talk about things that you've done in the past if it's completely related to the role. So we'll also talk about transitioning to a different career. But if you are actually applying for the similar role, then talk about every projects that you think is related to this role, in terms of, let's say, if I'm applying to a telecommunication industry, so anything that in the past that I've done with the stakeholders related to telecommunication, with the projects related to telecommunication, I definitely want to bring that up. Second, I want to have a sequence. Either I want to talk like the latest one and then go back, or I just want to talk about like the very earliest one and then go back and then take it forward. I don't want it to be everywhere, because then,
Hmm.
one, either I'll forget something. Two, the recruiter would not have like a sequence on their resume, like what exactly are you talking about. So definitely follow a sequence. Third would be, make sure that you're talking about what you're bringing to the table, right? So if I'm answering that, I would be like, tell me about yourself. So I'll start with what I've done, in my previous company. This is my idea of what I have done in my previous other roles. And third point would be, I am looking for growth opportunities, and I know that I'm highly analytical based. I'm high on data and with stakeholder communication, and I love those piece of it where I can set up more processes in recruiting to make it best for the candidate experience, right? Just an idea of that. So that I'm telling what am I actually bringing to the company. So as much as I need the job, you would also need me. And the tip would be, complete that within 2 minutes. Do not go rambling about it for 10 minutes, until unless a recruiter says that I don't have structured question for us. It is going to look more like a conversation. Tell me everything that you need to tell me about yourself. Then, I mean, go about for it like 5 minutes. But if somebody just asks, tell me about yourself, it should be 2 to 3 minutes of an answer.
That is such a great point. And anyone who's listening, if you want us to do like templates for tell me about yourself or things like that, please leave that in the comment box. But Shreya, you made a very important point, because I think it's important for candidates to now understand what kind of phone screening are they signing up for. Is it super formal, or is it just going to be a conversation or dialogue, and then kind of tailor your answers according to that? So if you're expecting the recruiter is going to be asking you a lot of questions, then to Shreya's point, keep it short, keep it brief, ensure you're covering a couple of things, your present, past, relevant experience, and what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And if it's more of a dialogue, then ensure that you're having and sharing as much as you can that will be relevant to the role. So this was really good. And again, if anyone is looking for templates, leave that in the comment box and we're happy to do another video. The second one is, I know we get this question a lot, like, why are you applying for this position? And you brought it up as well. What
Yeah.
is the best way to answer that? Because a lot of people are either having another job or are in a career break or have just recently gotten their EAD. So how would you um, recommend that we answer these questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. And I mean, looking at the time, this definitely is something that a recruiter is absolutely going to ask, right? So I'm glad that you've put this in the discussion. I would say the best way is to first tell them that if there was a gap, why there was a gap. For whatever reason, if there was a gap, you can always be like, hey, I took a break for the family, or hey, I moved to a different country and I took a break to understand the culture and to just, take that break because I've been working for 7, 8 years. Or even if you were not, you can just be like, oh, I've moved to another country. I wanted to take a break to understand the culture in the industry. And now I'm getting back. And that's the reason I'm actually applying for the roles. And I'm applying for these roles because this is what I've done in the past. That can be a way to it. Second is definitely make sure that you are talking about growth. So you're not just mentioning because I took a break, I want to go to the next one, or because I was working in this company for 5 years, now, I want to change. Always mention that I've been with my company for 4 years, 2 years, 1 year, and I think my role has been changing. And the next role that they want me to take within that company is it doesn't align with my career growth, and I'm looking outside to make sure that the next role aligns with my career growth. Another
Yeah,
thing
that's
can be that I am plateauing my growth. I've been with the company for 2 years. I have looked at the features and the products I could launch, or I've looked at the strategic decisions that I could make. And now I look for more growth and more challenges. Another great point would be mention if, let's say, I'm going to a startup or I'm going to a bigger industry. I can be like, I want to come to a more structured place because I've worked with startups. I want to come to a company who has a better vision, maybe a long term vision, and has more structures and processes. Vice versa, I'm coming from a bigger company. I want to go to a startup. I want to do the challenges more. I want to wear lot of more hats.
Perhaps.
And right now my career is progressing, so I'm not looking more of a financial stability or visa stability. I'm more looking at the growth piece of it. So depending on where you are in your career.
No, I think those are great ways to answer, and thank you for sharing that. I think it would also be amiss if we don't discuss for people who have been recently impacted by layoffs, and if they have to answer this question, how would you recommend they best answer this?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I would absolutely agree. Like I said in the beginning, absolutely go about like telling them the reason for it. So if you're like you're laid off, you can be like, you must be aware of the X company's layoff, in January 2023, in February 2023. I was impacted, but I took these couple of months to be with family to understand what I want next in my career. And now I'm back in the market. I would really suggest keep off by saying that I have been looking since January and I haven't found anything since 7 months. Because, I mean, even if it's extremely true, that would give the recruiter an idea that there is a reason that you have been rejected by the interviewers. They would not know that maybe you haven't got received that call, or you haven't had your EAD, or you didn't actually look seriously for it. So try telling them that I did take a break after that because I wanted to assess my career growth and then take it forward from there. But always be very honest about it.
No, that's such a good point, because I think sometimes people are not sure how to navigate this piece because it's already a lot. So appreciate you sharing that. Then the other one that also came up when we were discussing was the salary range. And I know, like in a lot of states, like you don't have to disclose your salary or anything like that.
Mhm.
But a lot of people who move here recently don't know that they're not mandated to kind of share their salary. However, I would love to tap into two things. One is, what if still someone asks you your salary expectations, how to answer that? If they provide a range, do I need to immediately answer that, or
Mhm.
anything else that the candidate must know?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I would definitely add for that always have that salary conversation early on. And I'll tell you why. Because it is important, even if they like you and you like them, if the salary is not going to be a piece, then it's going to be there in your data, in your report, on the company data set. And then somewhere it's not going to sit well with them that, after all this while the person is saying this, or the other way around, that whenever they would reapproach you, they would be like, oh, this person needed this, let's just not, right? So by no means I'm saying do not disclose it. What I'm trying to say is try getting it from them, that what they are looking at. So maybe if they ask you upfront that, hey, what is your salary range, before we close the conversation, let's talk about that. Then you can be like, that's a great question. I would rather want to know it from you. Does the company have a budget or a range for this role? Why am I asking this? Because I have been offered a range from different companies that I'm applying for. So I want to know what your range is. The recruiter might ask by saying that, can you share the range that you're getting? You just have to make sure that they share their numbers before you do. Again, by no means I'm saying that do not share your numbers. Share it. Know your numbers. Share those numbers. But try making sure that they share it first. Second important tip that I would give here, Priya, is make sure that you answer it and you actually structure it in a way that, hey, I have been offered, let's say, 120 to 170. That's a huge range. 120 to 130 as my base range. And then there's stock and bonus. And I am looking for something around that. Do not say I want 120 to 130. Say I have been offered 120 to 130 in the other roles that I'm applying for in the similar industry, and I am looking for those numbers. Have that conversation, because it's important for your time, for their time. And I also think as transparent as you become in that conversation, that shows your confidence, that shows that you really are into this, you really want that job, and you trying to have like a complete conversation rather than just making it half-hearted conversation.
No, that's super helpful. And the one thing I definitely want to call that you mentioned here is ensuring that you are having the recruiter share that range, because full transparency for anyone who's moving to this country, say for example you started your first job in like $70,000, however you already had like 7 years of experience back in India, but for whatever reason to get in, you started at a low range. However, now when it's your chance to move, you do have the opportunity to go to like even double your salary in many cases.
Yeah.
So it's important for you to do the research for that position and like really understand what is the ask that you're going to make. So to Shreya's
Yeah.
point, like when they ask you the range, you should be comfortable saying that you believe that this position is worth like 120 to 150, and then have that conversation versus trying to lowball yourself. So
Yeah.
the more you can build into your negotiation tactics of having the recruiter share that with you, it's just going to be more advantageous for you, because then you don't have to just get like a 10-15% increase from what you're making. You can really like shoot high, and as long as you have the skills, it should be okay. Is that a fair way for someone to think about it?
Absolutely, 100%. And I loved how you said that know your negotiation skills. So don't just go about, can you tell it to me? I've had candidates who are like, can you please share your range? And I was like, okay, thank you. I can do that because I know that I can do it. There are a lot of companies they can't do it or they usually
Yeah.
don't do it. But I would really say, like, try framing it in a way where it doesn't look like an order. It looks more like a request and a conversation. And then again, like you said, Priya, yes, you don't have to worry about like what you were getting in your previous role, and you don't have to mention those numbers. You're not obliged. That is not included in being transparent. What is included in being transparent is including what you are, going
Looking
to
for.
accept moving forward and looking for. So there's no way you have to be at 80 if you were at 70. It's like, oh, this is a great 10% increase. Don't think like that. Like, you don't have to lowball. And yes, I would highlight that point. You don't have to lowball yourself just to get into a company or just to get into a job.
Yeah, and a lot of us, when we move here initially, you might not know the market or understand, and you might feel like you have to start low. That's actually not the case. But I know of people who have done that. But when you do the switch or you find the next one, you really have the chance to like go up and like ask your worth. So know your worth, do your research, and then negotiate accordingly. So thank you
Right.
for those insights, because sometimes I feel it's kind of a black box.
Yeah.
Um, I will move to the next one, which I think is everyone's favorite question when the recruiter asks us, do you have any questions for me? How
Oh,
would you recommend we ask those questions, or what are some good questions that you have heard of that would be something that our listeners can take inspiration from?
yeah, I think that's a great question and it's so underrated, Priya. Like when people ask like what do you want to ask, they just always feel like, oh, I don't want to ask anything. I don't want to bother you. It's okay, you're giving me the job, right? Do not feel that you're in this space that you cannot answer, that you cannot ask questions. And honestly, if you're sitting on a phone call, if you're sitting in an interview, they want you as much as you want them. So always feel equal. Like go with that mindset always. Whenever they ask for like, what questions do you have for me? Always have at least three questions prepared and ask at least two of them depending on the time. One of my most favorite is Hey Priya, tell me, what is your favorite part about, your company? Or you've been here for this many, of course, do your research. I would look at your LinkedIn profile. And if I don't know your LinkedIn profile for whatever reasons, that's okay. I would still ask that. I don't know for how many years you've been here, but I would love to know about your experience and what is your favorite part about your company. Second can be, what is your your challenge when you've been here, and what is that one thing you would change about the company? I've got that question as well. And honestly, I couldn't answer. It's like, what would I change about the company? I really like it. But there were things I could speak about in the moment because I was like, oh, they're not bigger deals. I can speak about it. Third can be, what do you think? One of the so almost all the companies have some values, right? We can always add, what is your favorite value of the company, or what is that one value that you live by, or your team practices on an everyday basis without actually saying it out loud. So you can actually get an idea of the company culture. So probably what I'm doing is breaking the company culture questions into something so that you understand that. Third can be that, hey, so let's say that you are talking about like one specific industry. We've been talking about product, so let's just say that you're talking about a product industry and the company has just launched something. You can ask the recruiter that, hey, I saw that product launch. What are your comments on that? Or I saw that product launch, and then these are the features that I really love. What were your favorite features? Second, that would show the business acumen that you've actually done your research. And even if you haven't had the chance in that 25 minutes to share your knowledge about the company, here is your more chance. Again, make sure that you structure your answers well, you structure your sentences well. You do not go about blabbering, because that would be one, such a turn off. Second, waste of their time and your time as well. Other questions can be definitely around, why is this role open? Like, is it a backfill? Someone has been fired, someone has been promoted. Are we expanding? What is the idea? Why is this role even open, right? If they haven't answered already, talk about the team. Can you give me a little bit more idea about the team? Like, who will I be reporting to, and how many other colleagues would we have on the team? So it can be around culture, it can be around the company vision, or it can be around the team, depending on what conversation you had in the first 25 minutes.
Amazing. I think that's such a great way to put it, because if you haven't had the chance to showcase certain things, it's a great way to weave that into the questions. I will ask a question, which
Yeah.
is, I know some people have asked me this, and I want to get your POV on that, which is, what are you looking for in the for
Hmm.
in a candidate for this particular role? Like, what are you looking for in a candidate for this role? Is that something that is a good question to ask, or are you kind of on the fence about that?
I think it's a good question to ask if they haven't already answered it, because a lot of times, like when I'm speaking with my candidate, I'll talk to them about the team. And at the end, I will put it, the team is looking for this in a candidate. And that's why we've been very specific about it. And that's why we loved your profile. I would try putting it out there. But again, every recruiter has a different way of approaching a phone screen. If they haven't already answered it, definitely ask that. One, that'll be such a confident booster, because you'll be like, oh, I've answered that. Second, if you haven't done that, so for an example, let's say that they say that, oh, we're looking for a candidate with great SQL, for an example, right? And you haven't had a chance to share an SQL project, you can be like, oh, funny that you mentioned it, and I should mention it right now. And I know that we have 3 minutes, but I really want to quickly mention the project that I have done, which was completely SQL based, and it's there in my resume for whatever reasons. Again, a great way to share things that you might have missed. But even if you didn't miss it, again, a great way to know what they're looking for, and how can you make sure that it is in your resume, or it is in your script when you're speaking with the recruiter. So yes, I think it's a great question to ask, Priya.
Okay, awesome. And then, of course, it will be an incomplete conversation if we don't understand how do you decide that a certain candidate you're going to move forward with. Like, what are the green lights and what are some of the red flags where you're like, I'm not going to be moving forward with that candidate?
Yeah, there's so many. Honestly, completely depends on the skills that the hiring team is looking for. In the beginning, I know that we spoke about like the three pillars, which is like the hard skills, soft skills, and the business acumen. I would not move forward, honestly, with someone who doesn't have the soft skills, because I know as soon as they would reach to the team, and as soon as they would reach to like more challenging interview processes, they're not just going to be nice, because the communication skills are lacking. They're extremely nervous. I can see them shaking. There's so many times when I can see someone shaking and like breathing heavily on the phone. I just tell them, hey, can you take a minute, mute yourself, breathe, and know that this is a conversation. There are more tougher conversations coming up. So if you're just nervous about this, take time off. But if I know that they know their thing, but they're not great with conversations, I don't think, for me, it's going to be a no-go, because I know the hiring managers are probably going to be like, because as soon as
Okay.
like you sit in a video, they're going to be like extremely nervous. They're going to be like flipping on things. They're going to be like looking here and there, and not no eye contacts. So that probably would be a red flag for me. There's some sort hard skills that you cannot pass on, which actually are in the basic qualifications. You really need it. So again, it can be anything related to product, relating to operations, relating to like HR. There's some things that we look into the candidate, which even the job description has two sections, right? Basic qualifications and preferred qualifications. So if you don't have the basic qualification, recruiter might not even reach out to you. If there's some things from the preferred qualification that are missing, they would still be okay. But there are some things in the hard skills that they would be looking at and they can't overlook. So those things probably would be a red flag. Third, if someone would come and tell me that I don't know anything about the industry. You know what I mean? Like when I talk like why this company. So for an example, if someone comes like if I'm recruiting someone and I'll be like, why do you want to join this company? And they have no solid answer other than like, oh, I've
Hmm.
been a consumer. Oh, I've seen this company grow. I can see the shares going up. I'd be like, oh no. You're interested in the passion. You're not passionate about the company. You just randomly apply. So if I don't see that passion, if I don't see that interest for the company, it's gonna be a no-go for me.
Okay, that's super helpful, and I think it's surprising that how many of those we can get where people will just like not do research and show up when, yeah. So no, I completely hear you on that. Again, like we know we talk about this on It's Okay a lot about being ghosted or not hearing back from recruiters. So what is what is the next step that the candidate can expect from a recruiter, and what do you expect from a candidate after the phone screening ends?
Right. I think that's a great question. And honestly, I just really want to put out there, like anybody who's been ghosted, I'm extremely sorry from the whole recruiting community. From two reasons. One, we don't do it intentionally, but it happens. And second, even if it happens, like it shouldn't happen, because I know even if it's a yes or a no, it should be communicated. But with that being said, I would answer, if someone has, just had the phone screen and I said that I would follow back with you by the end of the week, end of the day, whatever that is, I would not expect, but I think it's a great gesture to receive like a thank you note saying that, hey, I had a great conversation with you. Thank you for giving me more insights about the industry, about the team, and which was so helpful. That increases my interest in the role. And I'm looking forward to hear more from you by the end of the week, end of the day, as per the conversation. Um, it's not just a thank you note, you all. It is more of a reminder to the recruiter that I need to follow back with this person, because that email is just gonna sit in my
Yeah.
email, in my inbox for so long that I'm gonna be like, oh, let me just. And again, it's not that it is anyone else's responsibility, it's recruiter's responsibility to get back. But if they've ghosted you and if they haven't replied in, let's say, 10 days, reach out to them again and be like, hi, we had great conversation on this day. This is my email, and I really want to hear back from you if you have any updates from me. In quotes, I really want people to write this. I have some other updates, or I have some changes in my interview process, and I wanted to see if you're all still interested moving forward with this one. That would show the urgency. If they really liked you, they would reach out to you. If they liked you 50%, they would still reach out to you. So, what I'm trying
Mm.
to tell you is, one, have that visibility, make sure they don't forget about you. Second, if you think that they've kind of forgotten about you, remind them that, hey, I'm in a set, you're kind of losing me to the market. Do you need me back or not? So try those two
Mm.
things. Again, by no means it's your duty to do it. It's definitely recruiters to do it. But for whatever reasons, I'm sure in the back end, there's so many things that changes. Either the hiring manager's idea of the role, the strategies around the headcount. There's so many things, and you've been on the hiring
Yeah.
committee, so you
Yeah.
know that, right? There's so many things that changes that you, in fact, even if I want to, I cannot reply to a candidate because I don't know what is the update. So just yeah, send that email and have a connection. Cannot say that enough. Always connect them with on LinkedIn. Connect with them on LinkedIn, because that's your way of like being updated.
Mhm.
It's your way of like knowing what's happening in the industry or with them.
So, would you like, this is super helpful because I feel like it gives someone an action to take when they haven't heard back, and it's very, very actionable. So, appreciate you sharing that. But what would you say if someone hasn't responded in a while? Is it fair to continue reaching out, or where do we just draw a line and be like, I gotta let this go and like move on? Like, what is the right way to do it? Because sometimes people just get emotional and bitter about things, and I'm trying to get more insight around what's the best way to
Yeah,
manage that.
I like that. I love that question. And thank you for bringing that up that, you need to draw that line, not for them, for yourself, because you need to understand that this might not happen. What is my plan B, or what are the other plans in my plan A, right? So I would say two reach outs look nice. So one would be a thank you note on that day. Two would be your two other reach outs. And then at the end, the third reach out can be, hey, I know I haven't heard back from you, so I'm assuming that you don't have any updates from me, but it would thank you so much for talking with me, and I really appreciate it. Hoping we get to work in the future. And if you have any other roles, if you still have this role open, I'm still interested. Or if you have any other roles that you think might be a great fit, definitely reach out to me. I have connected with you on LinkedIn, so I would keep myself updated of what's happening within the company. If you haven't already, I would try finding you on LinkedIn and connect with you. Why? Because you're not blaming the recruiter, you're not blaming one person or one thing for getting ghosted, but you just understand that it is the process that you cannot help, right?
No,
So I
I
reach outs.
So reach outs. Okay, two reach outs. If haven't heard back, connect on LinkedIn, move on, find the next one. Okay.
Yes.
So one last bonus question
Okay.
that I want to ask: do you ever reach out to candidates after just looking at their LinkedIn, even if they haven't officially applied to the position, and you're like suddenly reaching out? And is that a phone screening?
Oh my God, Priya, all the time. All the time. And
Mm.
that's why we talk about like how your resume in LinkedIn needs to be so updated. I reach out to candidates on LinkedIn all the time. So all the emails that I got my job because of a LinkedIn connection and because of a LinkedIn message. But yes, I reach out to people on LinkedIn all the time, even if they've not applied. So there are two things. Okay, there's one role which is extensively popular with people and they would just apply for it. There's another role, there are other roles which are like very niche. People don't directly apply for it. You go and find people for them. So
Okay.
for that, I always look at LinkedIn. I know, keywords. And that's why we say like your resume, your LinkedIn should have keywords, because we would do keyword search, we would do hashtag searches. And so yes, we do it all the time. And that's why your LinkedIn needs to be amazing. And then your resume needs to be amazing, because those are the things that recruiter would look at before having that phone screen. And yes, so many of my LinkedIn emails have converted into phone screens and in fact offer as well.
Oh, awesome. And when you like, that's so helpful to know. And when you reach out to that candidate directly, do you just do the phone screening right away, or do you ask them if there is another time for a phone screening? Because what I'm trying to understand here is how prepared one
Oh
should be
yeah.
if they are talking for the first time and they suddenly receive a call.
That's a great question. I would say that I would send them a message and give them my calendar invite that, hey, schedule a call. It's going to be a 30-minute. This is the team we're talking about. This is the role that we're talking about. Here is the link to the
Okay.
role. If you're interested, let me know. There are some recruiters who will be like, hey, I have a role in the team. This is what we are looking at, and this is a project that you worked on, and we're interested because this seems pretty similar. Do you have any availability? Let me know your availability for the next week, and I would schedule a 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes call with you. It's usually 30 minutes. So it's both ways. I would rather share my calendar or I would ask for the availability, but I think it's only seldom that we would do like, let's do it right away.
Okay. Okay.
Usually we
Got
do
it.
that. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's really helpful to know. And thank you for sharing all of these nuggets. And for anyone who's listening, I hope you get some value out of this conversation and you feel more prepared for your next phone screening.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming back, and I'm excited to see you in person, hopefully soon. And yes, but thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Priyan. It's always a pleasure. And I'm so glad that we are, recording these videos and letting people know there's so many more resources available. So thank you so much for
Of
bringing
course.
these and for everybody for including me.
Of course. Of course.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Priya.